Chapter 27. Learn to protect yourself. Traitors had no human rights. When in Zhao Soxui, Zhu Tui, and Gong Ling found Cha Yifeng, he was still tied up like a shrimp. There were now more wounds on his body than before. After knowing that he was a traitor, several people had intentionally come to stomp on him or throw rocks at him. No one would care about that behavior. Professor N, fortunately, we had you today. Liu Tian, who subtly expressed his thanks when he saw Zhao Soxui arrive. His voice was a little raspy. You need not thank me. It was part of my responsibilities, and Zhao Soxui said. Liu Tian, who did not say anything more. Protecting the students was indeed within the responsibilities of Zhao Soxui, being a teacher in charge. However, not many people would have tried as hard as Zhao Soxui. Are there any results with the interrogation? Zhao Soxui asked. Liu Tianhu shook his head. He had been through professional and unique training. He also went through training to enhance his resistance to drugs. Ordinary elixirs that affect a person's mental state would not work on him. That was also the reason he managed to go through all of those screenings. Our men in Jincheng Prefecture had also reported that his home, office, and communication devices are clean. There is nothing of value. His family members had also disappeared. The neighbors said that it had been 2 days since they saw his family members. They must have been prepared before we even set off. How do we deal with him? Zhao Soxui replied as she pointed toward Cha Yifeng. Let the upper agencies deal with him. Under normal circumstances, he would be sent to the military court and issued a death sentence. He would definitely have to eat lead. But Liu Tianhu suddenly let out a bitter laugh while he was speaking. He paused. But what? Zhao Soxui asked, confused. A crease formed in Zhao Xu's forehead. It also made Zhu Tui extremely confused. Getting Cha Yifeng through a judicial trial and executing him was a natural course of action. Liu Tianhu suddenly whipped out an evidence bag. The items in the bag were the 2 false teeth that Zhu Tui had pulled out of Cha Yifeng's teeth not too long ago. They were the false teeth made out of magnetized tantalum, which could be used to transmit special signals. They might have achieved breakthroughs in the technology they used to magnetize tantalum. The magnetic properties of this item are about to disappear. Liu Tianhu waved the evidence bag as he spoke. The magnetic properties are about to disappear, and Zhao Xu's widened, which means to say that in some time, the magnetized tantalum would become ordinary tantalum and be unable to transmit special signals. It also means that this pair of false teeth can no longer be used. As evidence for him being a spy, Liu Tianhu suddenly took a deep breath when he said this. Under normal circumstances, we can still get him to eat lead through the military court. However, if this lad manages to fool around and conjure some leads to drag time, it might be possible for him to survive. Liu Tianhu had only said half of what he wanted to say. However, the meaning behind his words was clear as day. His tone was filled with dejection. Even Zhu Tui wanted to vomit blood from how dejected he was when he heard this potential outcome, much less Zhao Soxui. A heavy feeling lingered in his chest. It felt extremely uncomfortable. Zhao Soxui stomped her foot toward Cha Yifeng. You sure are a great spy. You came up with a great plan. Your plan was sufficiently intelligent. Cha Yifeng clenched his teeth and remained silent. Zhao Soxui became even more furious. Many times, silence meant consent. Scumbag! Zhao let out a furious roar but did not take it out on Cha Yifeng again. Instead, she turned her head toward Colonel Liu Tianhu and said, Of the 2 students that died, one of them belonged to my bus. I know. Liu Tianhu nodded. Many of your soldiers had died. Liu Tianhu's expression became heavy. I do not like probabilities. I like certainties. Even extremely small possibilities are unacceptable. Zhao Soxui had a stern expression. Are we still in wartime? Naturally. Furthermore, because we got ambushed just now. The ordinary wartime SOPs we were under had automatically been raised to emergency wartime SOPs. Liu Tianhu answered immediately as if he realized something. Good. I think that there is a possibility that we would be ambushed again in the future. To remove this potential threat, I recommend that we implement an emergency trial on this spy, and Zhao Soxui suggested. Intelligence staff noted down, Liu Tianhu shouted. Roger, I agree with Professor N's suggestion. As a safety precaution, we will be using non-conventional means. And implementing an emergency trial on Cha Yifeng immediately, Liu Tianhu roared. Go, hang him up, and Zhao Soxui directed her words toward Zhu Tui. Zhu Tui did not understand what Zhao Soxui wanted to do. However, he understood that they were going to punish Cha Yifeng. He deftly hung Cha Yifeng up on a nearby tree. Cha Yifeng, who had also realized something, suddenly screamed in fear. You can't do this. I want to go to court. I have a team of lawyers. I want to go to court. Cha Yifeng howled in fear. Last chance. Tell us your emergency mode of contact, Liu Tianhu said firmly. It's useless. His partners had already realized that he had been captured. At this moment, all modes of communication that he knows must have been cut off. All the threats are being taken care of as we speak, and Zhao Soxui explained. He no longer has any value. Zhu Tui suddenly felt his heart turn cold. At that moment, and Zhao Xu's voice had been brimming with killing intent. Lend me your dagger, and Zhao Soxui freed herself from Gong Ling's grip and spoke to Zhu Tui. Zhu Tui still had the battle dagger with him. Let me do it. I already have many problems to deal with. One more wouldn't hurt. Liu Tianhu walked in front of Zhao Soxui and made a few incisions on Cha Yifeng's head and neck with the dagger. As Cha Yifeng was being hung upside down, fresh blood immediately gushed out of the wounds. At the same time, Liu Tianhu took off Cha Yifeng's chin. Cha Yifeng struggled violently but could only groan after his mouth was gagged. Yet, the harder he struggled, the faster he lost blood. As the commander, Liu Tianhu would face no consequences if he killed a spy fighting back during a battle. However, executing a spy after capturing him alive was not something Liu Tianhu could decide on a whim, even if he was the commander. Even though, in theory, he had the authority to execute anyone at will. However, he was a soldier. He had rules to honor and follow. He had to write a report to his superiors if he decided to execute a spy after he captured the spy alive. He had to be clear about the necessary reason for his decision in the report. This was the protocol. He would have to write an investigation report if his reason was not robust enough. He might even have to undergo a relevant investigation after the deed was done. However, with Zhao Soxui endorsing the decision, the matter would be much simpler. They would not face that much trouble when they executed the spy. This was also the reason Liu Tianhu came to look for Zhao Soxui. The emergency trial lasted a total of 5 minutes. The spy Cha Yifeng, having already been injured, died from an excessive loss of blood. The intelligence staff quickly recorded his words down. Cha Yifeng started to struggle like a lunatic. His expression was contorted with fear. With this many wounds and him being hung upside down to bleed, he would be dead in 3 minutes. The feelings of dejection that had accumulated in Zhu Tui's heart just now were instantly cleared out when he saw this scene. Comfortable, Xiaoxu had killing intent written all over her face when she looked at the violently struggling Cha Yifeng. I, and Zhao Soxui, hate spies and traitors the most. She turned to leave after she said her piece. Her words caused Gong Ling and Zhu Tui to tremble. Honestly, both Zhu Tui and Gong Ling wanted to give the traitor Cha Yifeng the harshest of punishments. They even wanted to kill him. However, thinking about it was one thing, doing it was another. The shock of personally witnessing what just happened was something Zhu Tui and Gong Ling could not describe. After freezing up for a few seconds, Zhu Tui and Gong Ling hurried to follow behind Zhao Soxui. Gong Ling carefully supported Zhao Soxui, who was still staggering while she walked. The gazes they had at Zhao Soxui suddenly felt a little foreign. Why? Do you think that I am merciless? No, Zhu Tui answered. Gong Ling shook her head. Miss Anne, I do not understand why we do not execute a traitor like this with a gun. Gong Ling voiced her confusion. Everything has its rules and processes. The law is fair, and Zhao Soxui suddenly answered. However, many times bad guys understand the law better than good guys. So, in many situations, we have to understand the rules better than the bad guys do. Only by using these rules can we better protect ourselves and more people. And Zhao Xu's voice suddenly adopted a meaningful tone. Everything that you have been through today might have turned your worldview around. After you enter Wuxia Genetic Evolution College, you will slowly realize that the world that you are in is completely different from the world you know in your heart. Remember, the most important thing is to learn to protect yourself. After she said this, and Zhao Xuxi turned back and looked toward the tree that Chai Yifeng was being hung at. The reason Liu Tianhu agreed to my suggestion is to protect himself. As for me, my reasons are purer. I, and Zhao Xuxi, hate spies to the core. And Zhao Xu's final sentence seemed to be directed toward herself. Gongling and Zhu Tui looked at each other. They had a sudden realization. And Zhao Xuxi might have a story related to this. Half an hour later, after all of the injured were tended to, everyone boarded the buses again. Originally, the severely injured had to board medical vehicles. Cheng Mo was considered to be severely injured. However, there were not enough spots on the medical vehicles. Cheng Mo was the least injured out of the severely injured and was assigned to travel on the buses. He would be tended to later. On the bus, Zhu Tui made a bed out of the seats and got Cheng Mo to lie on it. Cheng Mo was generous. He did not require too much of Zhu Tui's care. He consumed a mountain of food and fell asleep. There was nothing much for Zhu Tui to do. He found himself back at Zhao Xu's side. Miss An, I have a question that I wanted to ask you. Sit. And Zhao Xuxi voluntarily stood up and moved a seat inward. She allowed Zhu Tun to sit beside her. Miss An, can you tell me about modified humans? Why have I never heard about modified humans in the past? Also, that Earth Element superb individual, why is he that powerful? Also, what kind of mystery branch abilities do you have? Why is it that powerful? Not only can you block off the bullets from a high-powered electric sniper, but you can also fly? Can I learn that in the future? By the side, Gong Ling, who had heard Zhu Tui's questions, also moved over. Miss N, I wish to know too. Oh yes, Gong Ling, is your mystery branch ability the ability to control plants? Zhu Tui turned around and asked.